Okay, Justin, my regional superintendent is on the line too, Mr. Chapman, so he's here as well. So whenever you guys want to get started, I think once they all log in, we can go ahead and get started because I know you have to do North Division's meeting as well. So everybody, if you can mute your computer or cell phone, we're going to get started. I want to welcome you all to our meeting. We're full steam ahead. We know this is different. But we're committed to what we're doing. And I want to thank Justin and the team for all that they're doing to keep us abreast of making sure we get this going for our Hawthorne students. So Justin,
Cool.
You want to get started?
Perfect, thank you so much. And I'm gonna help everyone too. I'm just gonna mute everyone. And as we get into this, there's the chat window, which should be on the little floating bar that you guys may have. If you click chat, Lisa Neeb, who's Reflow's Green and Healthy Schools project manager, will be monitoring the chat window for any questions that come up. So we'll be able to take a look at that. And we do have, if we just take a look at this agenda, we do have multiple opportunities here to just touch base with everyone. Doing the webinar format with all the questions, we are just trying to, kind of catch up with any questions that come through the chat window. And we'll talk a little bit about other opportunities to provide feedback as well. But thank you again for everyone. The original plan was to do this in person, to do kind of an open house of the schoolyard redevelopment plan. And I do want to mention it's conceptual and draft. Those are two really important components that we'll talk about in a minute, but getting feedback on the draft plan right now is great. And so we opted to do the virtual open house as opposed to waiting further. We do plan on hosting something in person in fall. We appreciate that not everyone has access to the internet, and that this is intended to be something to get some feedback earlier on in the process as we move through the time with the pandemic. So
Justin,
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to say hello to my director of school board member, Mrs. Harden. I hope I'm saying it right correctly, but welcome to our meeting. I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged her as well.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Very good. Okay, so our plan, we're going to do a little introduction to Reflow and what the Green Schools Consortium Milwaukee is. We'll talk about the schoolyard redevelopment projects, and then we'll just talk a little bit about why Nathaniel Hawthorne wanted to go through this process. And then we'll go through the draft conceptual plan, and we have a number of different opportunities for people to provide feedback. So with that being said, I'm gonna page through this. So Reflow, I'm the executive director of the nonprofit Reflow. I'm also an environmental engineer. Reflow is from Milwaukee. We work with a number of different community stakeholders on community-based water projects. And on the bottom there are 5 different program areas. We're talking primarily about the Green and Healthy Schools initiative, but we also work with innovative placemaking. That could be Fondy Food Market. We have a digital storytelling component where we share water stories across the region through different virtual media. And then we work frequently with urban farming. This is Alice's Garden. And then we also hire 10 high school students each year to work on meaningful projects that help connect the dots between each of these different programs as well. That's very quickly what Reflow is. Several years ago, we helped to establish the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee. The consortium is not a new nonprofit. It's a consortium where it's a bunch of different organizations and interested individuals coming together around the same table to support green and healthy schools. And so the idea is that we have these 3 different perspective groups where they're practitioners that may be teachers, it may be administrators, it could be nonprofits, it could be the contractors and others that are on the ground moving forward with green and healthy schools. And then we have agencies, which may be the school district or the city of Milwaukee or others that need to give permission to allow meaningful projects to move forward. And then we also have the funders at the table as well from the very beginning to make sure that we are able to raise the hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars necessary to move forward with significant redevelopment projects. And I just wanted to mention that this consortium is out there. And unfortunately, we had to cancel the annual Green Schools Conference. This would have been the 5th annual conference this year, which is a big bummer. But last year, there were about 300 people in attendance. It was at Brown Street Academy. This year, it was going to be at Longfellow on the south side of Milwaukee. But we will have an annual conference next year, and we are talking about trying to provide a virtual option this year. But this is a really good opportunity to connect with other schools that are in similar process or have already explored really meaningful curricular connections as well. And then this is a slide to help communicate the importance of the Green Schools Consortium and what we're talking about. A lot of our Milwaukee area, really urban schools look like this, where we have a lot of asphalt, and they don't have to be that way. Through student engagement, community engagement, we can have something much better. And that picture on the top right shows a school that's Maryland Avenue Montessori on the east side of Milwaukee, where several years ago they redeveloped a parking lot into an open green space that's available for students in the surrounding community as well. And so these projects have been done in the past, and the consortium is really about trying to take those lessons learned and helping to equitably support schoolyard redevelopment across the southeastern Wisconsin. And that annual conference is a big deal that I mentioned. And then each year we collaborate on sharing resources, and one of those resources is the conceptual planning process. And so we invite the consortium to vote on which schools to go forward with as well. And I'll talk a little bit further about that in a minute. This slide helps to communicate what the schoolyard redevelopment projects are and the process that we're going through. Nathaniel Hawthorne is in this conceptual planning phase. We'll spend all of 2020 in conceptual planning, and as a part of that, we've been doing these monthly meetings where we get together with the school's green team, and we've been working towards developing triple bottom line benefits of a schoolyard redevelopment, establishing fundraising targets, and collaborating with partners. And I do really want to mention that this conceptual planning effort is the result of a partnership between Reflow and the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, who is sponsoring this effort. And as a part of that, because these two organizations are so focused on community-based water projects, the conceptual planning effort really revolves around the intent to manage as much stormwater on the school properties as possible and help to further support educational outcomes, recreational improvements, and all sorts of other really positive things that come with schoolyard redevelopment projects. And these other organizations, the Fund for Lake Michigan, the consortium, CDS, which is a graduate program at UWM, where we're working with Carolyn and her team of graduate students to help support the conceptual planning effort, developing plans and renderings. They're heavily involved. And then also this is all in partnership with the Milwaukee Public Schools. Each year they support the conceptual planning by making sure that the schools that we work with are eligible. And then as we get further, Denise and from the grants department, and Angeline Koch, who's the relatively new, just a year on the job, the MPS's first sustainability project specialist. She is the project manager for all of the MPS schools going through this, and they play integral parts behind the scenes, making sure that these projects move forward. And so the first year is all about conceptual planning. The second year is all about fundraising. And then the third year is construction. And this graphic is trying to communicate that our first cohort of schools went into construction last year. Burdick, Hawley, Longfellow, and Starms. They're now in this maintenance and programming phase. This next month, which is really exciting, even with COVID, the second cohort of schools, we were able to raise $2.8 million last year, all through grant funding and sponsorships and donations, school fundraisers, to support these 5 schoolyard redevelopment projects. They're all going forward starting next month. And then this cohort 5 or cohort 3 is in the fundraising phase. And then again, Nathaniel Hawthorne is in cohort 4. And so just kind of note the other schools that are ahead of you, and then also in the same process that you are in as well. Okay. Some of these activities include school-wide participation and engagement activities. In this case, Longfellow decided to, a couple of years ago, do a really big community cleanup activity around Earth Day, which was a part of their schoolyard redevelopment. CDS, again, the graduate program at UWM, helps to support by creating renderings and plan drawings. And then here we have students engaged and maintenance staff and other stakeholders involved in reviewing the plans at the conceptual level, but then also again at the detailed design level. And then the built projects are really exciting and something to celebrate. And as I mentioned, this last summer we celebrated cohort 1. So this is a picture of the students at Starnes Early Childhood Center celebrating by cutting a ribbon there. Each year, Reflow hires high school students from Bradley Tech to help document these projects and collect interviews and do some really great things behind the scenes to help communicate the story behind these projects. And then it's really important that we have built projects as well. So we are talking about meaningful work that will happen in time. It'll take 3 years, but at the end of the day, we are talking about making meaningful change happen. So there's that. And here are the projects for cohort 1. I'm very quickly just going to show these photos. This is before and after. This is Starnes Early Childhood Center. So all of this asphalt ran down to one location, that one stormwater inlet. There was some tot lot facilities that needed repair. And so the project included this porous pavement, which is that rubber surfacing. And we did it in the shape of Lake Michigan. And we put these nodes that represented different cities around Lake Michigan. So students line up on these different cities. So there's a geography lesson. And then the slides, there are 3 slides that represent the 3 major river waterways in Milwaukee that students get to be connected with recreation at the same time of being able to be connected with some meaningful art as well. And then there's porous pavement, again, to soak in stormwater, and then a bioswale with native vegetation that helps to manage stormwater as well. And then there's a music play feature, new trees, good stuff that's happening there. Longfellow, again, this is all cohort 1 schools. All asphalt previously. This project included installing a greenhouse, another bioswale, a synthetic turf soccer field. This particular photo was taken before they put down the turf soccer field, but that's complete. An outdoor classroom feature, and pavement games and another bioswale. Also, something worth noting, especially in regards to Nathaniel Hawthorne, is this project is diverting stormwater off of the street and managing it in the bioswale as well, which is exciting because that's an opportunity for the school grounds to help serve stormwater management intent of the surrounding neighborhood as well, which reduces flooding and basement backups. This is Hawley Environmental. In this case, there's a 20,000 gallon underground cistern below the kickball field that was put in. We're working on putting in monitors that students can measure the water level and understand how much water is being managed through math and science activities on the school grounds. Basketball, so recreation is really important as well. So we're not talking about removing all of the pavement. We are making sure that based on stakeholder feedback that we're removing what makes sense. Hawley Environmental is an environmental school, so they had a significant interest in making sure that there were pollinator species and other activities on the school grounds as well. This is Burdick Elementary, just north of the airport. They had almost a city block of asphalt, and they had an existing hoop house. And we were able to remove about 60% of the asphalt and put in open green space, a new green kickball field, again, a bioswale, a hill, which is a little bit hard to see from this angle, basketball to maintain, and then an outdoor classroom as well. This is also a good example. The intent was to have a hoop house that, that was upgraded to a full greenhouse, but based on fundraising, Burdick and the team were not able to secure enough funding to support a full greenhouse. And so that this is kind of a a good mention to say how important it is to make sure we have a solid conceptual plan, and then also do a really great job in the fundraising phase, because the funding for these projects is coming from grant funding. And that's really important. Grant and sponsorship and donations and other things as well. Okay. I'm gonna keep going. Hold any questions until we get just through this next section. I do want to mention the process that Nathaniel Hawthorne is going through. So we had several schools each year apply to go through this schoolyard redevelopment effort. The schools asked to go through it by submitting a 2-page application, and then we invite about 10 schools each year to present in front of a 50-person committee. So it's kind of intimidating, and we understand that, but we really want, we try to make it as straightforward as possible, and we try to focus on what each school's need and enthusiasm is. And then we select 5 schools, and it's really important to get a lot of the Milwaukee community on board early on, and provide feedback and try to leverage as many resources and direct as many resources to these schools as possible. And so with that being said, Ms. Williams, if you could unmute yourself for a moment and just very briefly, if you're okay with it, just explain a little bit about Nathaniel Hawthorne's need and enthusiasm that you shared with the rest of the group, that can kind of help guide our discussions as we move forward. I'll maybe hold there for Ms. Williams. I think you're on mute. Okay. But we did have those 50 different individuals representing different organizations vote, and they all voted for Nathaniel Hawthorne. You guys ranked very high in the effort, which is really exciting. And so that was, that's why we went with Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I think some of the major components that I remember were that there's a lot of asphalt on the school grounds, and there was a significant interest from the school green team. Ms. Williams and the rest of the school have been awesome to work with, and have been meeting monthly to move forward, and that best represented the enthusiasm component of the effort as well. Okay. This is an example of the process, the planning process, and I do kind of want to mention one more time too that this is a 3-year effort. And so here we're in this conceptual planning phase. What we're working towards is construction over the summer of 2022. So that's 2 years away. So there's lots of time, but we really do want to focus on trying to get as much feedback early on in the process as possible. And this yellow arrow indicates where we are in this overall process. About halfway through the conceptual planning. Conceptual planning will take us all the way through 2020, and we are making adjustments as needed because of COVID. And we do really want to have an in-person meeting in fall before we wrap up the conceptual plan. And I do want to say it is conceptual, which is really important. The finer details will be further determined as we move through the end of the fundraising phase and get into the detailed design and permitting. So what we're going to be explaining in a little bit are kind of big picture. Do we want this or do we want that here? We won't necessarily talk through exactly how large certain features are. We can have some high-level conversations about that. But at this point, we are talking about, does it make sense to have 2 basketball courts or 3 of them? And then we'll talk further about the finer details as we get closer to the actual detailed design and construction phase. And then I do just want to mention here that the conceptual planning process so far has included a lot of site photos. So we did send a drone out to go take photos to help with understanding the perspective of what areas we're working with. We also reviewed historical records that MPS has on file, as well as the city of Milwaukee. We submitted we circulated a schoolyard use survey. So a lot of teachers and parents and students had an opportunity to respond that way. which helped inform what works on the school grounds, what could be improved, and what were some initial ideas. And then we did ask the school for what existing activities are already happening at the school and how can we support those really great things that are already going on. And then we have been having monthly green team meetings. And then we had a really great charrette session with students and teachers before COVID happened. And we were able to get a lot of ideas on paper. We took all those different ideas, working with CDS from UWM again, put it into one plan drawing. And then last month, we got together with a small group from Nathaniel Hawthorne to provide feedback on that first draft. And what we're going to look at today is the second draft. And we really do want feedback on that. And that's where we are today. So we're looking at the second draft, but I do want to underscore draft and conceptual. Ms. Williams, were you able to I had mentioned previously about the need and enthusiasm, and I had kind of shared what I remember from that. But if you have anything to add to that, by all means, please let us know.
Oh, I had to step away for a minute, but just the enthusiasm that we have around this grant and doing this for our students is just phenomenal. We want to make sure that we're giving them what they need on the Northwest side, being that we're the first Northwest side elementary school to experience something like this, and something for our community as well that we can be proud of, because we know we do a lot of work inside the classroom, but how can we take what we're doing in the classroom and implement it on the outside and have a learning environment where they can continue to learn just about nature and the experience with what that holds to bring back into the classroom. So we're just excited about it, and we just want everything to continue to move forward so that we can give the kids another outlet for education.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to pause here. This is a good opportunity for questions. And what we're going to do next after questions is we're going to take a look at the different ways that we all can provide feedback on the plan. And again, I can appreciate this is the digital format. More ideal would be all in person, but this is what we have available to us right now. So we have 5 different ways to be able to provide feedback on the plans, and we're going to look into it. But I do just want to offer the opportunity if anyone has any questions. Director Herndon, if you have anything you want to mention, by all means, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll have another round of questions at the end as well. Okay. Good deal. All right. So with that, let's take a look at it. So we have 5 different options. Idea flip is something fun that we're going to try. Normally what we would do in person is have like an open house where we take a look at different trifold boards and people put sticky notes on what they like and what they want to change. The idea flip is like a digital version of that. Immediately after, I think Lisa is going to send a Google form email to everyone that signed in. So if the idea flip doesn't work well, you can respond with a Google form, which has a lot of the same questions about what you like about it and what you think can be improved. And then we are recording this discussion as well. And we will share that on Reflow's website. We have a page dedicated to Nathaniel Hawthorne, so people can review that. Anyone that wasn't able to join us today, they can watch this video as well. And then we also have all of the draft plans in a Google Drive link as well. So if you want to review them in a PDF format, by all means, you can do that. And then we are talking about trying to organize an in-person meeting in fall, which depends on the situation with COVID. And if anyone has any questions at all, you can email Lisa, who is Reflow's Green and Healthy Schools project manager as well. Okay, so with that, I am going to flip over to this idea flip. And so if we click on this, it's going to pop open this. So this is the idea flip, number 1 option for feedback. Think of this again as a large poster board. Here's the conceptual plan, and then here we have boxes for different types of feedback. And I'll walk us through the conceptual plan. So I'm going to try to slow down. I can appreciate people's, it might be bouncy as we lag for the internet, but again, this is draft number 2. So what we left off on last time was, here's the existing tot lot. We like the idea of expanding that tot lot a little bit further. And so this plan shows that. We also show a large green space around that area. And there, all of that stormwater from the existing pavement all drains to this one blue dot right here. That's the stormwater inlet. And so we want to put a bioswale around that to manage and soak in as much of that stormwater as possible. But then looking at this as an opportunity to also have an outdoor classroom space right there in that bioswale with the native grasses can serve as a backdrop to that outdoor classroom. And here, this feature is shown as a hill, which would allow for seating on the hill. These little circles are stumps to allow people, students to run up there during recess or to sit on those stumps during any outdoor classroom activities. Gaga Ball is a fun, fairly low cost, a relatively low cost recreational activity, which students love. And we're talking about putting Gaga Ball there. And as we move, let's move to the south. Last time we talked about the interest in having a compass rose that helps communicate the north, east, south, west orientation. To the north of that, we have multiple Foursquare features that are painted on the existing asphalt. To the east, we're talking about raised bed gardens because there's a significant interest in healthy food access at the school, and planting a couple of trees as well. And if we go further west, we see this orange half basketball court. The idea is to have this to be a shorter hoop, so the younger students have a little bit more access to the basketball as well. The feature here to the south is another bioswale. There's a stormwater inlet here that collects stormwater from the parking lot, and this bioswale would help to be able to manage that stormwater. And what we're talking about here is a soccer field, a U8 soccer field in the southwest corner of the site. And to the north, there's a half basketball court and then a full basketball court. And one of the really cool ideas last time was to show the school mascot painted on the pavement as well. And so that's what that indication shows. Kickball is moved a little bit south, so it gets a little bit further away from the stage and second outdoor classroom area. And in the far north, we're talking about loose parts play, which is some terminology for logs and stumps that students can jump and hop around. This encourages team building because some of the parts, not all of them, can be loose so that they can create forts and they can create balance beams and other activities that involve multiple students at one time. And then over here again, we're showing another bioswale. That kind of dark green black color is a bioswale because there's a stormwater inlet here. And there's already existing a really cool mini outdoor classroom area with green space and seating. And so what we're talking about doing is expanding that to also include musical instruments as well. And then two other features. Here we're talking about putting lineups, including a distance marker as well. So any of the presidential challenge and other activities for running can be conducted here on this running line. That would also serve as a lineup marker. And then we did hear of interest in having bollards. Bollards are those poles in the ground that can be removed for maintenance vehicles, but they prevent vehicles that shouldn't have access to a certain area from using it. And so those bollards along this, access area was something of interest as well. Okay, so I'm just going to talk through how to provide feedback on this. Actually, before I do that, CDS, Community Design Solutions, again, that's the UWM graduate students. They did a really great job on putting together that plan. And then they also put together these renderings, which are intended to help provide a little bit more perspective as well. And so take a look at these. If you go through that idea flipboard, there's some really cool things. This is just kind of another way of looking at that same plan. It gives you a little bit better perspective of what we're talking about. And then they did provide 2 on-the-ground perspectives as well. And so this is that outdoor stage area. So if you have any comments about this, please provide feedback on that as well. And then they're also showing those loose parts in the background. One of the nice things I didn't mention about that stage area is that there are some really great mature trees as well that serve as a nice backdrop to that area. And then here is the outdoor classroom in the middle of that space with the bioswale and gaga ball pit, and then the expanded tot lot. And then here we're talking about the stump seating and stage area as well. Okay, so the nice thing about Idea Flip is that you can provide feedback on it. And so I'm just going to walk us through how to provide feedback, and then we'll ask for questions again. So on the right-hand side of your screen, as you were to log in, you'll see a tab for stationery, and sometimes you may have to click it. So I'm just clicking stationery here. And so if you have any questions, you can just click this and drag it out, kind of like a real Post-it note. And we would just ask that if you have a question, you post it here. So you can say, how many basketball courts are there? And the nice thing about this is that as you log into this, it will ask you for your email. So we'll be able to know who asked these questions, and then we can follow up as well. So if you were to post this, Lisa and I can follow up, or I can follow up on this. And you can add as many Post-it notes, any questions that you have. Multiple people can do that. If you decide you don't like it, you can double click on it, and you can hit the delete button that's down here. The colors, for our purposes today, aren't going to mean anything. Be as fun and crazy as you want with these. What really means the most for us is just which section you're putting these in. And so what would be helpful is if you explained what things you like as well. So if you really like the Gaga ball, really like Gaga ball, that would be helpful to understand. We're showing one. If there's a significant amount of interest, maybe it makes sense to have 2 Gaga ball pits, or if that's a good one. And then the other option, which is very optional, is you can scroll down on the stationery and you can go to these other buttons and badges. And so if you see a comment that somebody else did, you can say, I really like that. Or if you disagree, you can put a thumbs down on that one. And again, we can see who's putting these down, so we can follow up as needed as well. And then if you have ideas about how to improve the plan, please do provide those comments here in the improvement box. So if you have some really good ideas, right off the top of that, I think we should move those bollards further back, please feel free to provide that feedback. And if you want, you can provide an arrow that helps to connect what feature you're talking about as well. And then further down here, if you have thoughts or comments about these perspectives, same deal, please feel free to put some sticky notes around those. Okay. So let's pause here. Thoughts or questions about the conceptual plan, and then the idea flip. And before we open it up, I am going to mention that the idea flip is I thought to be a good idea. It's not the only way to provide feedback. So there are other ways to do that as well. But are there any thoughts or questions about idea flip and the conceptual plan as we just kind of walk through it?
Justin, I have been going back and forth with Mr. Sedlasik. hoping I'm saying that right. And the school's intending to get Gaga Ball this fall, so it should be existing.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. I think showing it is important because that's keeping it on the plan, because that's a component of it, but that will help definitely reduce fundraising costs for next year. So that's awesome. You guys are getting ahead of the game on that one. Any other thoughts or questions? You can go ahead and unmute yourself if you want.
I have a question about the stage area and the seating. Maybe I'm not seeing that clearly, but is that on the side of the apartment buildings?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I didn't mention that. So the blue line is the site boundary, and so there's also a fence on that blue line as well. So this is all within MPS property, and it's currently grass space. And if we just kind of look at that perspective, because that's a good way to look at it. You're right, the backdrop is looking towards those apartments. I think the idea here is that we would also put some plantings along the fence line to help kind of put some buffer between further buffer between the apartment buildings and the stage as well.
And that is my concern, that having music out there, a band or whatever we would have, a play, that it would not be a disturbance to the people that are living in those apartment buildings.
Yep, that's a good point.
Okay. Thank you.
And I will say, so Reflow's participated in a similar project, which is Paliafito Park in Walker's Point, and there are noise ordinances. And so there's actually a method to be able to measure how loud people are being at the property line. And so depending on what the noise ordinance in this neighborhood is, that's something that would be managed as well. That's a good point, though.
Can I ask about how long is that distance around the tot lot? Is that like 1/10 of a mile or 1/4 of a mile on that path?
Yes, that is a good question. Do we have CDS on the line that can field that question?
Hi. So do you mind zooming out just a little bit? So
Yeah.
I don't know the full what is it called? Like, I don't know exactly how many miles it is, but just to give you kind of an idea of how large it is, from all the way from left to right, the full width of it, I would say is close to about 150 feet. But I don't know if I'd be able to get a calculation off the top of my head for the exact mileage all the way around, but I can definitely make sure that that's something I can figure out this week.
So let's put that on the question list and we'll follow up with that one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think, what may be nice too is to even show markers. So maybe depending on what the length is, maybe every 25 feet or something like that, we can show a marker as well. I know something I forgot to mention that was brought up last time. We're showing the arrow lines because there was interest in having the bicycle training here as well. And so trying to reinforce the direction that students would go around the track. So I think the markers would be a really good addition as well. Okay, other thoughts?
The existing tot lot, are they going to be putting some kind of different material underneath instead of what is there already?
So other tot lots at MPS have, it's ranging in cost, right? So wood chips are the least expensive, and then there's the next one up is the rubberized mat that goes on top of the asphalt. That sometimes causes an issue because water will get in between the asphalt and the rubber mat, and that will degrade the rubber mat. So the more costly option is to remove the asphalt and then put down the rubber matting. If if that is of interest, we can definitely look into what the costs are. That it does increase costs, of course. But if that is of interest and that's something we want to explore, we should put that on the list.
I would think we should put it on the list because I know with those wood chips, there's such an issue, and then there's ending up being space between the wood chips and the asphalt, and then that becomes a concern with the littles tripping and falling and whatnot.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just I like this, so I'm gonna add these comments. Look. Oh. Okay. So I'm going to share this idea flip in the comments. So if anyone wants to do this on their own, you can add your own comments. That would be great as well. Oops. Invites, links. And so in the chat, okay, so hopefully that works. You should have just seen a comment from me in the comment window to everyone. Please feel free to click on that. We'll start seeing people here. I know it requires a login. It's fairly straightforward. It's just an email address and a password, but they don't require you to go back to your emails or anything like that. While that's going on, I am going to flip over to show some of the other ways to provide feedback. And then after this meeting, we'll continue, Reflow will stay on and we'll go back to the idea flip if anyone has more questions or wants to further engage through that means. But we also have this Google form opportunity. So a lot of the same questions. So email address is important. We do want to follow up if there are any questions. If you want to provide your name, that's great. If you want to download any of the existing or the draft conceptual plan, you can click this link and it will take you to this set of folders. So you have access to each of those drawings that we just looked at. So you can share those if you'd like. And then in this form, we're asking you the same questions. What do you like about the plan? But then also we're interested in understanding how much are you interested in certain parts. So, you know, is the track a great deal of interest, then please let us know that. Or if there are features in here that you don't think are very high on your list, then that's helpful to understand as well. And then what do you think should change? And then also this is important too, if you know of any community members or other stakeholders that should be involved in the planning process, please provide their contact information here as well. You can also send an email to Lisa, Neeb, and or myself or Ms. Williams, and we'd be happy to share and follow up with those individuals as well. And then here, as we develop the conceptual plan document, which I didn't go into too much depth on, is we will be asking for quotes about why people are interested in the schoolyard redevelopment and why we're supporting Nathaniel Hawthorne. And so if you feel comfortable in providing a statement here about your support for the schoolyard redevelopment, then this would be really helpful to get earlier on as we go through the development of that plan document. Okay, so that's the, awesome, people are in this, I love this, this is great. And then that's Google Forms. And I did mention that we're recording this virtual open house and the draft plans. Again, you can click that link. And then we are hoping for a in-person meeting in fall. And any questions, again, Lisa Neeb, I'm gonna just copy her email address into the chat window as well. So everyone just has that available. You can send any questions that you may have there. Okay.
Justin,
So, yeah.
Director Herndon.
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to say it was so nice to share some time with you this afternoon and say hello to everyone. Thankfully, we're all in good health. The other thing is that I'm very excited about this. This is really wonderful because our playgrounds are so outdated, and the MPS does have a program going on trying to correct some of those deficiencies as well. And the ones that I've seen are great, and your conceptual plan is super fantastic. Couple of things that really caught my eye was the staging area, the performance area out there. That's a new twist. And in the fact that we are expanding the music programs in the district that was taken away over the years. That's very exciting. And I can only imagine if the students were able to be out there with an audience and share their newly acquired musical skills, and also the surfaces, the playground areas. That is really wonderful as well. And our children, they love it, they enjoy it, and it's great to see it in a community that I'm sure will certainly appreciate it and love it, which is anywhere you've got children, they're going to enjoy the outdoor space for sure. So thanks for inviting me, and I will certainly stay abreast of this.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining.
No problem.
Any other thoughts? I'm looking through some of the chat. Okay. So I'm going to share, if anyone is like I mentioned, that Lisa Neeb, after this meeting, she's going to send an email to everyone that was on this call, so that you have all these links readily available as well. I'm also just going to share in the chat window the link for the presentation. So if you're interested, you can go through the presentation again. If you want to share it with anyone, by all means, please feel free to do that. It's set up so that anyone with the link can view it. And again,
actually, I'll just sent the email, so you all should have access to that, but please feel free to pass that on to anyone who might be interested in looking at the plan.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? I'm seeing raised hands. I'm trying to get this. This is our first time using this format, so it looks like Katie's iPhone. Is that one that you have a question?
And how long are you going to leave those open for comments?
Great question. Great question. So, and that is something I should add into that presentation. Very good point. So we're going to leave the opportunity open for 2 weeks. So we're talking about May 29th, Friday, May 29th. If we need to make special accommodations, by all means, we can do that. Like we say, we do have many months before we want to wrap up the conceptual plan, but it would be really helpful if by May 29th, we get feedback so that we can start to incorporate those into the planning effort that will continue over summer. Oh, that's a good thought, question. Okay. Katie, it looks like you answered his question. Thank you for that. Anyone else before we break?
No, I have a comment. Very good presentation. I liked what I saw, and I'm looking forward to us moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be fun over summer. So over summer, we'll continue to make progress. What would be really helpful is if anyone has photos of school activities, we will be starting to compile those. I know Lisa will follow up over summer as well. So of course, we want to make sure that all the photos have student photo releases. But hopefully when we get back in fall, we'll have a solid draft for us to start working on the conceptual plan document.
As far as the photos are concerned, send them to Ms. Butney. She's going to be working on that for me. So if you have any photos you've taken in the classrooms or outdoors or what have you, send them to Ms. Butney. She will take care of that. and then we'll get them uploaded to Lisa that way.
Okay, well, Ms. Williams, you have anything to round us out?
Well, just to say, I'm excited about this. Thank you to my wonderful staff who has come on this Zoom call to let me know that we are really invested. I looked at all the participants. That says a big, big thing to the district that we are committed to making sure that this comes to fruition. And I must say, I have to tell you, the director, you have to make sure they don't move me for the next 10 years because I have to see this come into play and to make sure that my legacy is intact there.
Love it. Right on, right on.
Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate it. Wonderful job.
All right. Have a good one. See you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Mm-hmm.